So now moving on to this evening's talk. So we're concluding our long-running theme this evening. Well, actually, no, technically we're doing it next week with a ritual, but tonight's the last talk on our running theme, the goal, looking at different ways of approaching, understanding, trying to fathom this thing we call enlightenment, the sort of the goal of the Buddhist path, the Buddhist vision of what human life is for. And it's part of this much longer theme, wheel, spiral, and goal, so we'll be kind of concluding that whole theme next week. But we've mainly been looking at this, what is the goal of the Buddhist life? We did that for quite a few weeks, looking at the mandala of the five Buddhas. So these individual figures, enlightened beings, archetypal beings representing different qualities of enlightenment. And this is a very, can be really helpful, inspiring way to approach, what are the qualities we're really trying to embody in our life now, not just what's on the distant horizon. It does both really, but looking at these Buddha figures can really do that, can help us imagine, uplift our imagination, perhaps begin to fathom what is enlightenment about. But this image of the goal as a solitary individual, it does have its limitations. It can make it seem as if that Buddhism or enlightenment is just a kind of personal individual affair, that it's just about me becoming more enlightened, me reaching a goal. And it's not quite like that. That's part of it, but it's not quite like that. And last week, Bodhinaga started to fill out this image of the Buddha, expanded it to be not just a Buddha or a Bodhisattva, as they're called, but a world, a whole world, a realm that we call the Pure Land, a world that is a sort of presided over by an enlightened being, their influence spreading, permeating the whole land so that everyone is able to have the best conditions to grow and to develop and to thrive. So we can then start to see that we can see the goal not just as ourselves growing, ourselves becoming more enlightened, but actually creating a world, creating a realm that we can all inhabit together, where the conditions for growth and human flourishing are really top. And it also, Sangha actually suggested another way that, again, this is recapping Bodhinaga's, we suggested another way we can think of what the kind of significance of a Buddha or a Bodhisattva. So a Bodhisattva, if you're not familiar, is a being whose his whole life, all his energy is flowing in the direction of helping all of life to grow, to move towards this enlightened state. Their whole energy, the whole being is dedicated towards that. And Sangha actually said that actually, if we think we can become that being, if we can become a bodhisattva that's going to liberate all beings, if we think I can do that, it may be inspiring for a while, but we'll probably find that that's very difficult and pretty impossible actually. Ourselves and our own individual will has its limits. We said it's more helpful, more healthy to think that together we can collectively participate in and give rise to the Bodhisattva, the 1,000-armed Avalokiteshvara. There's many, many arms, so we can see ourselves collectively creating this enlightened being. Each of us an arm of Avalokiteshvara in our own way, contributing, offering our hands, our skills, offering just ourselves, even if we don't have many skills, so that everyone can benefit from the enlightened activity which stems from his heart, the jewel he holds to his heart. So we can think of this being the goal, that we're creating a pure land. And I'll be talking more a bit later about how we do that, how we might do that. But first I want to explore a bit more kind of this question, why do that? In particular, sort of take the kind of the wisdom perspective, how some of the sort of, quite sort of fundamental but very profound wisdom teachings of the Dharma imply that this might be a much more helpful way of thinking of what life is about and what Buddhist life is about, building a pure land together. So I remember for me personally, so at the end of the 6-week introductory course, I remember who for me was led by Vedanya and Satyajyoti and Mokshitara. I remember Vedanya saying, well, it was the end of the 12 weeks actually, I think he was saying that, we run these classes, we teach you meditation, we teach you about Buddhism, but we're not doing this really just to impart information and to help you then, kind of go off and do your own practice, do your own thing. That's part of it, that's definitely part of it. So really, what we really want is we're trying to build spiritual community. That's what we really want to do. I remember hearing that and thinking, well, not really know what to think, really. I think part of me is like, oh, okay, fair enough. Don't really know what that means, or if I'm up for that, but I'm loving this, so I'll keep coming along. But later on, like probably a year and a bit later on, it became what I kind of really loved about the Dharma, what made me want to commit more to it. So it's actually why I asked for ordination, which is sort of having more of a sense that what we're doing is so much more than just ourselves and how we ourselves can benefit. We are actually doing something that concerns kind of everybody, in potential everybody, the transformation of our minds, the transformation of consciousness, sort of where a real meaningful and truly happy and beautiful life, that concerns everybody. I just noticed this faith emerging. I felt like Sangha, building Sangha, the ideal of Sangha is a way of living up to that. It's this sort of ideal of humanity, you could say. And by that, I don't mean sort of like the ideal of humanity is for it to be one big Buddhist centre, but more like kind of seeing that the ideal of human relatedness, the way we could be relating to each other on the basis of love, compassion, contentment, generosity. That is the sort of ideal of Sangha. It's the kind of ideal of how human beings could be related to each other as a community. But often, we might think about our practice, Buddhist practice, as about our own mental states, our meditation experience, maybe insight. We often talk about our practice or my practice, don't we? Sort of like, this is good for my practice, or this is how I'm doing, this is what my practice is like. Particularly, we might often be thinking about meditation when we say that, perhaps. And it's easy and tempting to think that if we want to be happy, even to become enlightened, we just need to just really dedicate ourselves to our mental states, to our meditation, to wisdom, reflection. Really, really great and important things, and I'll come on to that later. This is a threefold path, ethics, meditation, wisdom, fundamental Buddhist teaching, really important. But if our approach is just to think the goal is just for me to do that, I need to just become unethical, I need to meditate, to develop insight, whatever it is, if we think it's just about ourselves traversing along this kind of solitary path, even a bit with the help of others, we'll probably find sooner or later it has its limitations. If it's just, at the end of the day, if it's just about us trying to kind of traverse a path, it has its limitations. We'll find it limiting, maybe even positively painful at times. Something that's highlighted to me when this was highlighted to me actually, or reflected back at me, I used to live and work at Padmaloka before I moved back here, and times where be there getting on with my work. All the work there is for the people there, it's for the people coming there on retreat, but they're working away in the office. Someone would knock on the door and I'd have this response of leave me alone, I'm trying to get on with this work. And so, stop bothering me, I'm trying to help you here, can't you see? And then you'd come in and I realise, this is for this person, this is why I'm doing it. If I can't respond in a friendly way, why am I doing this? It kind of highlighted to me sometimes even something that kind of started off as quite an altruistic thing can easily fall into, it's just about me getting my work done, being successful, not upsetting people, doing a good job so I can feel good about myself kind of thing. I remember somebody saying there, he said, what's the point in insight if you can't put the oat milk back in the fridge? I think he had a point, a real point. So why is this? Why I'm saying we're just we're thinking more primarily about ourselves and just our own sort of practice. Why is this might be painful or not work so well? Well, in the introductory course, we heard about attain. So if you remember this word attain, which is one of the three marks of existence, three marks of conditioned existence. Attain, which translates literally as something like non-self. That can be really misleading because it's not that saying you don't have a self, that's really unhelpful. Better translated as sort of non-separate selfhood. We don't have fixed, separate identities that are somehow separate from each other. We don't exist as isolated, independent individuals. We exist as a part of a whole web of conditions of life and of relations with each other. This is one of the fundamental insights of the Dharma. And yeah, it's a fundamental delusion of ours. It's the root cause of, well, Buddhism would say is actually the root cause of all our suffering, at least all preventable suffering, is that we deeply believe we're somehow separate. There's somehow some core that's kind of separate within us from each other. Separate from everything that we think of as not me. Anything that's not me is somehow, we've got this kind of, like a kind of barrier somehow. And so we feel, on that basis of that belief, we feel compelled to grasp onto things to secure ourselves and to push away things that we feel threatened by. And that causes us and others a lot of suffering. But yeah, one consequence of this kind of fundamental delusion is that we can massively inflate how independent we think we are, massively inflate the power of our own individual willpower, how much we think we can actually achieve with our own willpower alone. So an example of this is like making a meal. So you might want to imagine, the last meal you made. Maybe it was for Sangha night tonight, or perhaps one you felt really proud of. Oh yeah, I loved it. I made a cracking meal that time, whatever it might be. It's all right if you don't cook. Maybe microwave meal or whatever it might be. If you imagine that, and, we make it and think, oh yeah, I made that meal. But if you think about it, all the conditions that had to come into place for that meal to be ready, the vegetables, all the ingredients getting to the supermarket being there, the people working there, the cooker, all the utensils you had, all the equipment, the home you're living in, nature, the workings of nature, all kinds of stuff. And we just come in right at the end and just do a little bit of stirring, a little bit of seasoning, and say, yeah, I made that. I'm great, or whatever it might be. But it's just that last little, we just get that last little push and the meal is ready, but so much has gone into that already. And I think we do this all the time. We think that, I do something happens, and we think there's this like causal relationship. I did this thing, and that happened, and it was down to me. But it's not like that. And this applies to everything. It applies to absolutely everything. It's a consequence, I say, of attain, conditionedness even, which is another related doctrine of Buddhism. And if we want to grow, if we want to become more enlightened, it applies to this as well. Individual willpower and effort is only part of the picture, very important part of the picture. But alone, it's not enough. There needs to be the conditions, the external conditions that support it, that support our growth, that support us on that journey. In particular, the most important conditions is Sangha, it is community, it's friendship, living connections with others so that we can support each other, so that there are others to inspire us. I know I massively underestimate just how important that is. I fall into that thing thinking, no, it's down to me, I'm the one that's doing it. But it's so needed. We need that, we need this kind of framework. I'm sure you can appreciate this probably more if you're just coming along, how difficult it might be to sort of set up a meditation practice by yourself. So this is one of the reasons why we need Sangha, why Sangha is so important. We need it to support ourselves and support each other. But there is a more profound reason, why Sangha is so important. Another more profound implication of anatman, of this non-separateness, of interconnectedness. Because talking about we need Sangha to support each other, support ourselves, it's still kind of talking a bit in this, in this way of what's going to help me or you to kind of practice and to grow, like kind of, again, as sort of individuals, which again is important, it is an important dimension. I'm not saying that's not important. But it's not just that Sangha helps us to grow. It's not just that Sangha helps us move towards the goal. What I'm suggesting is that Sangha is the goal. It is the goal. It's what it's actually all about. And when I say Sangha, I don't just mean us as we are now as a community. I mean the ideal of Sangha, Avalokiteshvara. We could be Avalokiteshvara. Something far more than perhaps we can imagine, but that we can get tastes of every now and then. So all beings becoming enlightened, that is probably much more helpful way to think of what Buddhism is really about. That's what's called the Bodhisattva ideal. sort of reforming of the Buddhist ideal to take it above and beyond any kind of narrow conceptual framework that makes it just about ourselves. So because we're all deeply interrelated, the most true and skillful and meaningful way we can live is to more and more live for the sake of everybody, not just ourselves. Yeah, and I do think, well, it's not just me, and this is what I've learned, or what my teachers have taught me. It's our deepest and highest nature to love, actually. So to live for the sake of everyone. And if we're able to see, or at least a glimpse sometimes, the highest need of beings, of human beings, is to become more enlightened, is to grow, is to develop our minds and consciousnesses. That is our kind of deepest need. It's not our only need, but it's one of our deepest needs. So to cultivate minds that are truly and deeply fulfilled, so we can best serve this vision of helping all beings to move towards this, by helping to give rise to a community whereby this is possible, give rise to the conditions whereby this can actually happen, where those that wish to undertake that, to join in with that kind of movement, however you speak about it, that expansion of and development and growth of beings, creating the conditions whereby that is possible, that is what will best serve everybody. And perhaps, if we are able to make that our motive and our goal, to really try and live up to that, to see that we're actually, everything we're doing, we want to participate and contribute towards something much bigger than ourselves. Perhaps, I would imagine along the way, we may start to get more of a sense of what we really mean when we talk about enlightenment, and what that might actually mean, Yeah. So how do we do that? There's many ways you could talk about this, but there's a very traditional, very helpful Buddhist list. So Buddhism loves lists. And this is a list of 4. And if you're here on Sunday, part of the 20th anniversary celebrations, you would have heard Pradani say something about this. Which, I kind of just rejoice in that evening, actually. If you get the chance, I really recommend looking at some of the photos, watching a video of loads of you all rejoicing in the centre and saying what the centre means to you. It's on Slack, I believe, and via the weekly email. But Vedanta spoke something about this, about the vision of the Sheffield Buddhist Centre. But there's this teaching from the Pali Canon, this traditional Buddhist text, where the Buddha teaches the 4 Sangha vastus. So in this sutta, there's this character, man, called Hatthaka, or Hathaka. I'm going to call it Hatthaka, that's my guess for the pronunciation. And he receives teachings from the Buddha, and then the Buddha leaves. And after a time, the Buddha comes back and finds that Hatthaka's gathered this community, 500 people around him, this huge community. It's like you go away, you come back, and suddenly the Sheffield Buddhist Centre's here, and the Sangha night, and there's festivals and perhaps, and all these things. And the Buddha's like, well, he's probably not, I was going to say, the Buddha's like, wow, he probably wasn't like that, but, in his own, probably more mindful, composed way, he was like, wow, this is amazing. Hatthaka, how did you do this? How did you gather this Sangha, this large community around you? And he said, well, I did what you taught me, Lord. I practiced the 4 Sangha vastus, the 4 means of unification, as it's sometimes translated. You could say it's the 4 means of building Sangha, perhaps, the 4 means of gathering a community. And and Hatthaka says in response to this, sort of in practice, he said, when I saw I could connect with someone by generosity, I practiced generosity. When I saw I could connect with somebody by kindly speech, I practiced kindly speech. When I saw I could connect with someone by beneficial activity, I practiced beneficial activity. When I saw I could connect with someone by exemplification, I practiced exemplification. And then the Buddha says, very good, Hatthaka, very good. Everybody who has gathered a community in the past has done it through these 4 Sangha vastus. Everyone who will gather a community in the future will do it through these 4 Sangha vastus. So the Buddha's saying that there's these 4 practices which I'll go into for the rest of the talk: generosity, kindly speech, beneficial activity, and exemplification. These 4 practices embody principles that are timeless. Any community, any kind of positive community of individuals that anywhere they come together, they are a community because of these 4 things. It's not just a Buddhist thing, it's not just an Indian thing, it's a universal principles, like the 5 precepts. And in fact, the 5 precepts are actually contained within this. It's kind of like another path, another way of seeing the whole path, with a particular emphasis on gathering a community, seeing that as the goal. So firstly, generosity, or dana. Dana is the Pali word. So as a Sangha Vastu, dana, generosity, it's not primarily, as a way of building community and of connecting with people, as Hataka does. He says, if I could connect with someone through generosity, he gives, he's generous. So as one of these 4 Sangha Vastus, generosity here, it's not primarily about giving people things because they need them. It's that's an important aspect of generosity, isn't it? You see a need, you respond. But here, or the way Sangha actually talks about it, it's giving. It's more just a natural expression of our awareness of others and wanting to express our love for them. So we give because we want to give, we want to connect. It doesn't matter if they need it or not, we just give. We find a reason to give, find something we can give so we can connect and form those bonds with each other. And Sangha actually says that, quite interestingly, he says, a spiritual community is characterized by the constant exchange of presence among its members. And when I hear that, I get this image of there's boxes with ribbons on top and people handing each other presents, and I don't see much of that. So if that's the case, we're failing. But I don't think we are failing. I think that the principle is the same, is that a spiritual community is characterized by generosity, by giving things to each other, and not just giving when it's our birthday, not just giving when people are suffering, but actually giving because we want to give, we want to share with each other and love each other, express our metta from each other. And when we're regularly giving to each other, something really special is created, even magical, I'd say. There's a tangible atmosphere. Perhaps you may have felt this yourself or noticed it when you come to the Buddhist Center the first time, perhaps every time, perhaps even now, it's hard to say. When we're generous, the boundaries between self and other can start to soften, and then other things can come in, magic and something kind of sometimes not quite of this world even. I think of Sangha works days here at the centre, and the other times we get together as teams volunteering in the mornings and such like. We're all just giving in quite a natural, simple way, giving our time and energy for something that we believe in, something that's quite beautiful, very beautiful. And it's often been experiencing me on days like this. I just notice myself experiencing a kind of subtle but tangible happiness that doesn't seem to be coming from me, and I don't know where it's coming from, but it's there. It's almost like in the atmosphere. A few times people have said to me after the Sangha work stage, "Oh, did it go well?" And I just go, "Yeah." And then I realise, actually, I have no idea what work was done. The place could have been knocking holes in the wall, I don't know. But the tea break was amazing. The atmosphere, people were so happy. So I was like, "Oh yeah, it was brilliant. It went really well." And that's what it's all about, really. And this takes me on to, I wanted to say something about the dana economy as well. So the way that we practice generosity here at the Sheffield Buddhist Center. So dana, generosity economy. So absolutely amazing. Everything here at the Buddhist Center is free. All classes, everything is literally free. Vedanya was kind of hitting this home to us in a meeting recently. It is literally free. Yeah, it's not. It's free by donation or whatever. It is literally free. Absolutely incredible. This is because we want everyone to come. We want anyone to be able to come, regardless of their financial situation. But perhaps even more importantly, our founders, our elders, who had the sort of tenacity to do this, wanted to found this community on generosity and on this spirit, the spirit of generosity, this joyful atmosphere, this magical thing of generosity so that everything we're doing here is on the basis of giving. Or it's fueled by giving. Dana, it's a dana economy that's run on generosity. So people that come here, they can give money regularly if they like, but not to earn any kind of membership, not for anything in return, not as in any kind of transactional way. Loads of people are incredibly generous. I'm always amazed. I do the weekly banking sometimes, making payments. So I see the bank statements, all these names, all this money coming in. It's like, it's amazing. It's not for anything. It's just people giving and being generous. Not at all for any transactional reason. Just because people want to give, and it's amazing. It works. No one here earns a proper wage, really. Those that work here, we do it on what's called support. We kind of work out between us how much money we actually need. Just to live a fairly simple life, and that works as well. It's incredible, and it means that we have more money freed up, so we don't need, so that we can make this place free. We can make all our classes free. But there's so many ways that one can give. If you feel inspired and you would like to give, there's so many ways you can give. Time and energy. As I said, there's the volunteering teams in the morning. You could come and ask to help out on an intro course if you wanted, being on the team for that. Mentioned Sangha Works days. You could ask Sarah and Janet about, could you help make shrines, looking after the flowers and such like. The dishwasher, that's a good one. The dishwasher, cleaning the kitchen. The dishwasher is great because you can sometimes do it when no one's around, so you can be secretly generous. Just unload the dishwasher when no one's watching. I think that's like a very potent form of generosity, which I think kind of can create something extra special because nobody else knows about it, and that makes it really really amazing. No one can tell me well done. Actually, my private preceptor, Satyaraja, who ordained me, he said that he used to work in the Stockholm Buddhist Center, and he said that, and he loves meditation, but he said people were really, he got really interested in people. He thought, they're really getting this when they started unloading the dishwasher, and started maybe asking less questions about meditation, and started unloading the dishwasher. It was interesting. Don't all rush at the end. Oh, do if you like. But just to say though, as a kind of, just to say, none of us should ever feel like we need to give. Feel like this is again another thing. There's no transaction in generosity. It doesn't earn us anything. We give if we want to give, and that's it. And we take what we need. There's this motto: give what you can, take what you need. Really beautiful when we need something, we need the Sangha nourishment, we need friends, we need to be here, we just need to be supported. That is wonderful. We can receive that. We can really receive that. I'd experienced this quite recently actually after I had COVID, and it was in really painful states of mind that just got into something. Some of you may have experienced this, I don't know, but I had a week of quite hellish mental states of mind, and I just had to let myself be supported and nourished by my friends. There's nothing else for it, and I could do that. I'm so grateful. Couldn't really be generous, but that's part of it. Being grateful and receiving allows others to be generous. It's all part of this spirit of generosity. So secondly, the second Sangha Mastery, kindly speech, also loving speech, it's sometimes translated as. So speech really is a big part of creating the world that we inhabit. So if you've ever been in a not so wholesome work environment, you may have experienced this in the negative sense. People can create their own little worlds through speech, and sometimes that can be painful and toxic. But it can be the other way around as well. So imagine a world, or at least a community, where all our communication speech is permeated by metta, by loving kindness. How amazing would that be? And similar to generosity, so it's kind of like in the spirit of building community, kindly speech, we can use that to sort of give expression to how we feel about people, even if we think they already know it. We don't do it because they need to hear it. We do it because we love and we want to connect. We want to express that to people. So we can tell people that we like them, and tell them why we like them, tell them what we appreciate about them, tell them what we're grateful for, and then tell them again. Maybe not straight away, that might get a bit boring, but just keep telling people to really notice and tell people. I said it doesn't matter if you think they already know it. Something really powerful and beautiful can happen when we're actively and verbally loving people and expressing our metta for them. This can be really scary, I think. I often find it scary, and I get impulses to do things like this, to say, I really want to tell so-and-so this, and say, I'm so glad you're my friend, and that's really scary. It's like putting your heart out. It can be, quite exposing, like vulnerable thing to do, but very, very incredible, I find, exhilarating, very rewarding. And again, it kind of helps create this sort of mutual atmosphere of self-transcendence, of lowering the barriers between each other through mutually appreciating each other. You may also want to try saying really nice things about people behind their back. That's a really good way of doing kindly speech. So be really devious, really sneak around and saying nice things to people who aren't in the room. And that can sort of, that can really, it's a really wonderful way of just creating harmony, kind of ripples of harmony and appreciation through the community. But just a little word of warning, not warning, but just to kind of maybe reassure. I'm not talking, to practice kindly speech, loving speech, it's not just about being really nice all the time. You don't have to be nice and sort of happy all the time, like being the sort of life and soul of the Sangha night party kind of thing. And doesn't mean you have to be sociable all the time. Some of you may not know this, but we have a quiet room now, the green room. So at Sangha night, if you're ever finding it a bit much, if you don't like big crowds, which it's the case for some people, not everyone likes the big buzz kind of thing. Absolutely fine to go sit in your room, be quiet by yourself. That is a contribution as well. It's not just about being sociable. So thirdly, be a beneficial activity. Artacharya. Artacharya is the Pali word. Arta is one of these words that's really difficult to translate. Charya is a kind of activity, you might say, but arta, it means something like the greatest good, but it leaves it completely open. You don't know what it is, but it's just that sense of the good, the really greatest good that we kind of have an intuition perhaps about. So artacharya is activity that helps lead others towards the greatest good, which Buddhism would say is enlightenment, or the highest meaning. So it's concerned about bringing back the real deep happiness and fulfillment and freedom in others, helping them to grow spiritually in whatever way. Traditionally, it's said that communicating the Dharma is one of the most important ways that we can do this. But this doesn't just literally mean giving talks and talking about Buddhism or the Dharma. The Dharma is communicated primarily through who we are and what we do, not what we say. Primarily it's about who we are. It's communicated through living beings. It's communicated, it's sparked off in people. There's this saying, the Dharma is caught, not taught. And we can practice this, I think, one way we can all practice this by just is friendship, by really being friends to one another, giving ourselves to each other, sparking each other off in that sense. A lot of the time, what most of us need to grow is friendship, really positive human connection, but friendship that is kind of this mutual shoulder to shoulder, looking up towards the Atta, the good, the greatest good, deepest fulfillment and happiness. But we can only do this to the extent that we ourselves are embodying that, are embodying the Dharma. So this takes us on to the last Sangha I've asked to, exemplification. So we've been talking a lot about this other regarding aspect. That's kind of the main theme of this talk, you might say, kind of seeing the other regarding aspect in terms of building community. We've talked about generosity, kindly speech, and beneficial activity. They're all kind of very outward going. And you may be led to thinking that building Sangha is just an external activity, just something we do, like a kind of project, out there, and that it doesn't concern ourselves. But remember, the Sangha are those people who practice the Dharma. It's not just a community. The Sangha, the idea of the Sangha, Avalokiteshvara, 1,000-hour Avalokiteshvara, it's not just a community. Though it is a community, and that's wonderful. Communities are fantastic. But if we want to help give rise to Sangha, and not just like a positive group, which is a wonderful thing, but if we want to help really give rise to Sangha, we ourselves have to be part of the project. We ourselves have to be the part of that project of like self-transcendence, of moving towards something transcendental even. So we need to be steadily and systematically transforming ourselves, taking full responsibility for our minds. So meditation, reflecting on the Dharma, going on retreat. So bringing this dimension of depth, individual growth, bringing about metta, boundless metta through metta bhava practice. eventually even leading to profound inner freedom and insight and delight. And when this is placed in the service of something bigger, we do all this, we take responsibility for ourselves, our own practice, our own kind of growth and striving even. When this is placed in the service of the community and helping everyone to do that, perhaps then we're starting to move towards that, what might be something of what Sangha might really mean, what Sangha is as an ideal. So Avalokiteshvara, so holding the jewel to his heart, this core jewel that comes from real depth, from real wisdom and deep compassion. So you can see that there's this kind of double action of reaching in into the depths of our practice and reaching out into the world and into the community. And we both come together. Both is what makes Sangha. So finishing off. So the vision of this Buddhist centre, so inherited by Prajnahridaya and others, as I say, it's a vision that we're building a community by practicing the 4 Sangha Masteries. We kind of routinely, every so often we study this in our team actually, we kind of study this and kind of really try to imbibe the spirit, the centre team that's kind of runs the centre. But this is what we're all about. So at the Sheffield Buddhist Centre, we don't think of ourselves primarily about teaching and practice meditation, not even primarily about teaching and practicing the Dharma, at least not if that's understood in a way, like I said, of just sort of giving information that others can sort of practice in their own sort of, like on their own. We're living in a highly individualistic modern culture as we do. It's very easy and seductive to turn everything into some kind of personal affair, some kind of just purely personal affair. Not to say even something, maybe I speak for myself here, sometimes even a bit self-obsessed. I can certainly speak for myself though. But one of the gifts that the Sangha has given us, particularly in his later years, in sort of spelling out the vision of the community that he founded and realising more of the significance of what he was trying to communicate. So like in our times, realising that in our times we need a radical way of approaching the Dharma to help us realise the true spirit of what Buddhism is really trying to point us towards. It's more than just about, more than what we think it is. It's more than just about ourselves. It's about gradually and happily, I should say, very happily. It's not self-negation, not at all. Happily expanding our sense of self, not negating it, not denying it, expanding it to include more and more people and all of life, participating in building a community of joyful self-transcendence. And ultimately, it's about seeing that all of life is part of this process. And we can contribute towards that. We can align ourselves with that, helping all of life to grow and gradually more and more to help ourselves and others inhabit a pure land. Yeah, thank you.